I'm King Lincoln. It's the middle of October, so it's time for the Xbox Game Pass October 2021 review. Part 1. Wait, what was that last piece about? On screen is a list of games, and like always, I play all of these. Every game that actually comes out on Xbox Game Pass, I'm going to cover. It's been about a month since my last video, so how has Xbox done? Well, they've actually released 25 titles on the service that I have to cover. That's a ton, considering if I played one every day, that's almost the entire month there. And that's kind of what I've done. So I still want to cover them all, but 25 titles, a minute a title, it's going to be a huge video. So I'm doing the next best thing. I'm going to be bringing you 13 titles today and the rest next week. I'm still choosing the best out of all 25, but we're going to be breaking up the delivery. So let's see which 13 titles made it onto the first half. Starting with Flynn, Son of Crimson. This is an excellent 2D action platformer from Humble Games. Flynn, Son of Crimson constantly reminds me of the feeling when you're playing a classic NES or Super NES title. It's a nostalgic feeling in a modern game that looks amazing. Seriously, the graphics here do not let up and the art style is fantastic. The enemies too are great, not too hard, not too easy. A big focus is on dodging attacks. The gameplay here feels right. The only issue I have with the game is it takes a long time to start unlocking almost anything in the game. For example, around the halfway point, you actually get your second weapon, which is super late in the game. Still, the experience is really good, it just takes a long time to start unlocking pieces of the game. Pick this up if you like what you're seeing. The art kept me going here, the platforming and combat is good, though the story is the one piece that really didn't hook me. I still think the whole package is worth checking out. Superliminal. This is the third time I'm playing through this title, and you know what? It's the third time I'm loving it. Superliminal is all about dreamscapes. You start in a dream, and you learn that you can grow and shrink objects depending on how you manipulate them and your perspective. I'm not going to be discussing too much about the controls because much of the game is learning how the controls work and then capitalizing on them. The puzzles in Superliminal are all well designed and involve interesting leaps of logic and unique solutions to everything. I really love how surreal everything is here. Superliminal pushes what can be done in a game, and while it usually uses a pretty normal toolkit, it's still finding ways to blow players' minds, such as giving them a way to pull an object from a painting on a wall or grow and shrink objects with those simple controls I mentioned. Pick this up if you like 3D puzzle games like Portal or Talos Principle. As I said, I played through this 3 times, no lie, and it's still great, though I do wish I could forget it so I could experience it again. The only real negative is the length, where the game will run about 2 to 3 hours. There is a challenge mode as well as a way to create your own levels and more, but really once you've beat the game, you're pretty much done here. I Am Fish, another game from Bossa Studios. Last month we had Surgeon Simulator 2, this month we have a sort of sequel to I Am Bread. I'm not really a huge Bossa fan. I think physics-based games are a bit of a gimmick, and I Am Fish really doesn't change my opinion that much. You have a game where you're a fish, you're going to be rolling around with fish bowls shaped like balls. You also can go into mop buckets and odd-shaped jars. You know, could be a really fun and interesting version of Super Monkey Ball. Instead, the game seems to try to be more frustrating with weaker controls and annoying tasks. While there are moments of pure exhilaration here, there's always an annoying task around the corner, usually with a jar-shaped container for the player to be shoved into. I still enjoyed 3 out of the 7 levels I played, but that's mostly despite the controls, not because of them, and I played on the simplified controls as well, which should be the easiest. Pick this up if, I'm not sure. I think some people enjoy being frustrated and play games like I Am Fish. If that's you, great, but I really don't know if that exists. If you like Surgeon Simulator 2 last month or you enjoyed I Am Bread, this is going to be in that vein, but if you do enjoy this game, please let me know what you prefer about it down in the comments. I am genuinely curious about this. Skatebird. This looks like Tony Hawk, and he was once known as Birdman. Yeah, it's Tony Hawk but with birds. At least I think that's what the game was going for. You start in your owner's home and a bunch of birds are going to give you various challenges. You need to skate around on a board, try to complete various goals. It can be hard to find quest givers, but many of the quests here are just simple fare from this genre. Do a trick in a specific location, collect an item, or go somewhere. So let's use the easiest bar for this game to beat. Can this game compare to Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 or 2 for PlayStation? Not the remakes, but the titles made for the original PlayStation. And man, I really want to say yes, but the levels are weak, the controls aren't as tight as they should be. The writing can be funny at times, but ultimately, I can't say it's as good as that title, and that's as much an advantage as I can give this game. Pick this up if you want a subpar Tony Hawk game. I don't think that's a definitive no though, but it's for someone really dying for a Tony Hawk type game and can accept a weaker title. It's sad, but I hope they can turn this around and create a better title because I want a better version of this game to succeed. As it was released though, I'm sorry, no, and that actually hurts me. Sable, an incredible journey awaits. Sable is a very impressive game. It's a game completely based on the exploration of a large open world and allows the player to find their way. The player is leaving their tribe for the first time to be on their own, and it's kind of like the Amish tradition of Rumspringer or sending your child to college for the first time. And the first hour is mostly preparation for your journey. This is well done. The writing is fantastic, the music is lovely, the experience is serene. There are touches like having to build your vehicle, but the instant you do, you actually feel an important attachment to that vehicle. Stuff like that is very powerful, and Sable feels incredible, especially once you're getting out there and exploring the world. There are glitches, I have to mention them, but this is going to get a lot of attention for the right reasons. Pick this up if you like exploration games. This isn't a walking simulator, there is climbing like Breath of the Wild and searching a large map, but there's a lack of combat and a push to explore more than anything else in the game. That exploration though is top notch at the beginning, though I will say over some time the shine comes off the game, however it's still a very enjoyable experience. Aragami 2, a chance to be a shadow in the night or just a ninja in a group. Aragami was a solid game which I actually enjoyed. It told a story over several long levels and had players working through areas to accomplish goals. Aragami 2 feels like a completely different game though. No longer is a player focused on working in the shadows exclusively or using shadow powers. Even if they're named that in the game, instead it's just a typical stealth game focused on smaller levels. Players take missions and are magically teleported to a level and then are given some random task to accomplish, either kill someone, tag something, or steal something. The levels are really tiny, the interactions are pretty average, and while players will get more power over time, nothing in the opening cover hours felt on par with that original game. The big addition is the possibility of playing multiplayer, but it feels like the gameplay and the mission structure is weaker to support that feature, and the levels really don't need co-op at all. Pick this up if you want to play a stealth game with someone else. I couldn't actually get the co-op to work, there's a lot of bugs in the game, and hopefully they'll all get fixed, but it's clear that the game wants you to play online and work in a group, even if there's not a strong reason for that. Generic enemies and more really didn't help this game either. Tainted Grail Conquest. It's another deck-building roguelite, but wait, before you tune out, this one actually deserves a look. The deck-building roguelite genre is packed with versions of Slay the Spire, and truthfully, Tainted Grail does take a lot of inspiration from Slay the Spire. However, there are several refinements to the formula. A block, for instance, dodges an entire attack rather than mitigating damage. There's 9 different characters here, all pulling from one of 3 caches of cards, but each with unique skills and abilities that will heavily change the game. The overworld map is nice as well, allowing players to pick and choose the encounters that they want and sidestepping other ones. There's a strange system with the darkness called Weirdness with a Y, where you have to use candles to dispel it, and there's a lot more that have changed here. It's still a deck builder, but it's attempting to differentiate itself, and it does quite a good job. Pick this up if you want another deck building roguelite. Personal opinion, I'm really burnt out on roguelites, but I still want to play a lot more of this. I only played 3 classes because I kept wanting to play one more run of that first class. There's a lot of content here if you want to see everything as well, so that's good. Lost Words Beyond the Page. This is a heavy subject matter walking simulator with some interesting tricks. This is going to be looking like a lot of stuff, but Lost Words is a walking simulator that lasts about 4 hours, maybe a little more if you go for all the achievements without consulting a guide off the bat. It has an interesting style where you walk along the words in a diary with some platforming thrown in, and then you'll be tackling a platforming level with a beautiful and colorful world. I don't want to spend too much time or spoil too much here, but listen. The game deals with some very heavy subject matter, stuff that probably is a little raw to many people over the last year and a half if you can understand what I'm saying. I can't say if it's a good or bad experience because of that, and I don't want to directly give it away because it is really the core of the story here, but this game might be more emotional than it intends to be. That's what I'll say, just prepare yourself if you're going to play it, and of course take care of yourself. Pick this game up though if you like platformers, but I do caution people a little bit for the story. I almost put down this game 3 times because it really tore at my heart about experiences I've had over the last year, and not in a way anyone really would want. Just take it with a grain of salt. Lemnis Gate. Chess meets multiplayer FPSs with a strategic new feel. Lemnis Gate is a multiplayer FPS that does something, a little bit differently. The entire game revolves around players making 25-second moves back and forth between opponents with different characters. Each character comes from a different class. There's the sniper, the rifleman, the rocket wielder, and so on. But what makes this really stand out is each move allows the game to calculate who kills who. So if you capture 3 points, well, if you die in the first few seconds because your opponent kills you, those captures don't happen. If you do 100 points of damage to a target, the other team might do 101 on a later life, and that objective is theirs. The idea is this is more strategic and a fast-paced shooter, and Lemnis Gate delivers, but there are a few caveats. Pick this up if you want to check out a fresh and new idea for multiplayer. There's no single player content here, so you have to find an opponent, and that means it's going to be based on how the player base exists. If this stays popular, it's going to be a great game for a long time, though if people move on to the next multiplayer game that's coming up, there's quite a few actually, this might be short-lived, sadly. And I don't know which way this is going to go, though the numbers on Steam charts are a little bit rougher than they should be. Dandy Ace, you're a magician trapped in another universe with your cards. Yeah, of course, it's a roguelite. This is yet another roguelite, and listen, I know the genre is really popular, but Dandy Ace is kind of one of the issues. It looks flashy at first, but doesn't do anything interesting with the genre, and I noticed a lot of Dandy Ace just reminds me exactly of Dead Cells progression with a Hades-style view. While the game is based on cards, they are equipment, so it's much more Dead Cells than a deck builder. I found the game rather hard and struggled to make real progress. I played it for a few hours, just couldn't get past that first 3 areas. The enemies are interesting though, the gameplay is fast paced and very active, though the levels are a little bit too linear in my opinion. However, there's nothing really bad about the game. Pick this up if... I keep saying that if you want a new roguelite, but this is my 3rd video covering Xbox Game Pass. In just that time, this is the 9th roguelite, and some are good, some are bad, but it's really hard to decide which one is right for the audience. If you like what you're seeing, check it out, but personally, I don't think this one's going to top my list. Subnautica Below Zero. The sequel to the underwater survival game delivers a chilling new experience. Subnautica was a solid survival game focused on an underwater exploration of beautiful environments and building at your own base, and Below Zero seems to do the exact same thing. There's a brand new story that's rather compelling about a sister who is wound up dead. There's a very hostile environment that seems to spend all its energy trying to kill you above water, and there's a whole new world underwater just waiting to be explored. Subnautica Below Zero is just an excellent sequel to an already great game. It pushes what can be done, it refines the formula, and there's a feeling that this is a better paced experience. But it equally has all the same issues as the first game. If you don't like survival, you're still probably not going to enjoy this one, and if you're afraid of the water or monsters, well, they're still here. Pick this up if you like survival games or Subnautica. This is a really good sequel. I enjoyed the first 15 or so hours of Subnautica, and I enjoyed my first 4 hours here. Don't know if I'm going to be going all the way through this one, but I definitely wouldn't mind coming back and exploring the deep. Mighty Goose, a new take on the classic run-and-gun shooter. Mighty Goose involves the player running around, shooting everything they can and surviving an onslaught of enemies. It reminds me a bit of the very best of Metal Slug, though a bit easier with infinite lives. There is a variety of different levels for players to run through and colorful backgrounds. The downside though is it's also a bit simple like a Metal Slug game. It's a pure run-and-gun shooter. There is a number of upgrades or skill loadouts that you can make, but nothing really changes the game from the simplistic platforming and shooting involved. This game took me a couple hours to run through it, and then, as if the devs needed to lengthen the game at the last minute, the finale requires the player to replay the entire game a second time at a harder difficulty level. Pick this up if you like Metal Slug or Contra or any old run-and-gun shooters. It's a good game for that, but it's also way too short. If you don't have Xbox Game Pass, I'd probably skip this. It's $20, which is entirely too much for the length of the game. Unsighted, a challenging isometric Metroidvania with a few new twists. Unsighted looks great. The pixel art is amazing and there's a lot of care taken with the look and feel of the game, and it definitely shows. The combat flows well with a focus on parrying attacks and managing your stamina while fighting large groups of enemies. Everything here works well. You can also swap out weapons, and there are a couple choices to your equipment that allow you to mix and match between them. The challenge is pretty high, at least at first. I found it a little frustrating, but I also tend not to go for Souls-like games, so that's of course a personal preference. A big piece of the story here, though, is about a society where robots are dying and becoming unsighted, which happens when they run out of a special fuel. Every character has a timer ticking down, such as the main character, who has 330 hours, which translates into about 330 minutes. This is a make-or-break feature of the game, though. You can sort of disable this feature, but it adds a fresh and unique system to the game, and I think that's what this game's worth looking into for. Pick this up if you like the art or want a challenging top-down Metroidvania. The combat here is good, the art is consistently solid, and the story is intriguing. It's worth checking out, but the time system might not be for everyone. It doesn't really feel ultra strict so far, though. So that's what I have for 13 games. I know that's already a lot, but Xbox keeps releasing titles this month, and I like to cover them. I hope you're enjoying it so far. Next week, we're going to have the second part, and wow, we're going to have a ton. We have Scarlet Nexus, Astria Ascending, AI the Somnium Files, Marvel Avengers, Visage, The Procession of Calgary, Totally Accurate Battle Simulator, Ring of Pain, Back for Blood, Destiny 2, The Riftbreaker, and finally, Good Life. And I'm going to be having to choose the best out of all of that bunch? Damn. I'm sure you're interested. I definitely know I am. So if you're interested, consider subscribing and ringing that bell so you're notified when I release the next video. And if you want, check out the past 2 Xbox Game Pass videos I've made. I'll see you then.